Your podcast is not a creative project. Welcome back to the Podcast Why. I'm Brett Johnson, my podcast guy, your trusted friend in podcasting. The show is here to help you reconnect with the real why behind your podcast so you can keep showing up with clarity and confidence. And welcome to Season 4. Let me say something that might sting a little. Your podcast is not a creative project. I know. You love it. It lights you up. You've poured hours into the intro music, the episode art, the way you open each show, and none of that is wrong. But if you're running a business, if you're a consultant, a coach, a service provider, a brand, and your podcast is sitting in the same mental category as your journal or your weekend hobby, we've got a problem. Here's what I've seen over a decade of working with podcasters. The ones who treat their show as a creative outlet almost always plateau. They get inconsistent, they burn out, they start measuring success by how good an episode felt to record rather than what it did for their business. And eventually, they quietly stop. The podcasters who build something that lasts and that works make a different decision early on. They decide clearly and deliberately that their podcast is a business asset, not just content, not just a creative endeavor, an asset, something that holds value, serves a function, and contributes to outcomes that matter. So what does it mean practically for a podcast to function as a business asset? I've worked with podcasters who couldn't answer that question when we first met. But once they could, everything changed. An asset does something. It pulls weight. In a business context, your podcast should be doing at least one of the following: educating your potential clients before they ever get on a call with you, filtering out people who aren't a good fit so your sales conversations are cleaner, warming up referrals so they already trust you before they reach out, or reinforcing your authority in a specific space so that your name becomes synonymous with a problem you solve. That's a very different job description than I share my passion and I hope people find it interesting. Here's a test I use with my clients. If your podcast disappears tomorrow, would your business feel it? Would anything measurably change in your pipeline, your client conversations, your visibility? If the answer is no, that's important information. It doesn't mean your show has failed. It means it hasn't been set up to succeed as a business tool yet. That creative energy that makes your podcast enjoyable to record, that's still important. That energy is what makes the content listenable. But energy alone doesn't make a podcast a business asset. Structure does. Intention does. Clarity about what the show is for does. Here's where I want you to land today. Take 5 minutes after this episode and answer one question in writing. What specific business function is my podcast supposed to serve? Not a vague answer like build my brand or get my name out there. A specific one. Does it educate clients before they buy? Does it generate leads? Does it deepen loyalty with people already in your world? If you can answer that clearly, you're ahead of most podcasters I meet. If you can't, don't worry. That's exactly what we're going to work through this season. Because when you know what your podcast is for, your podcast why, every other decision gets easier. What to talk about, how often to publish, whether to go to video, how to measure success. All of it flows from that one clear answer. Your podcast can be creative and strategic at the same time. In fact, the best ones are both. But strategy has to lead. That's the shift we're making this season together. You can book a clarity call with me. Just head over to my podcast guy online and look for the book a clarity call link. We'll map your podcast why to your business and your business to your podcast, so it all feels coherent. Thanks for listening to the Podcast Why. I'm Brett Johnson, my podcast guy, and I'll talk to you in the next episode.